The Richardson family's weekly dinner at Morton Steakhouse was always an exercise in status comparison. Tonight, my cousins David and Jennifer were particularly focused on office spaces, specifically my lack of one. Still working from that storage closet in the Apex building? David smirked, adjusting his Rolex. What is it, 100 square feet? Do you even have windows? I took a sip of water, hiding my amusement. My storage closet was actually a carefully designed cover, a small office that served as the public face of Summit Ventures, my real estate investment firm that owned not just the top floor of the Apex building, but the entire structure and most of the premium commercial properties in the business district. It suits my needs, I replied mildly, watching Jennifer exchange knowing looks with my Aunt Catherine. Not everyone needs floor-to-ceiling windows to be productive. Darling, Aunt Catherine interjected, her diamonds catching the light, you're 32. Don't you think it's time to find a real office? Something professional? Your cousin David just expanded his law practice to the entire 48th floor. The 48th floor. My floor. The one I deliberately kept vacant except for David's recently leased section, just to watch this play out. Speaking of which, David boasted, we're taking over the rest of the floor next month. The owner finally agreed to lease the remaining space. Prime real estate like that sitting empty, they must have been desperate. My phone buzzed discreetly. A message from Sarah, my chief operations officer. Renovation plans approved for 48th floor. Contractors ready to begin tomorrow. Should we proceed with the surprise inspection? I typed back, perfect timing. Let's make it interesting. At least your little closet is in a prestigious building, Jennifer added with fake sympathy. Though how you afford the rent in the Apex building on your, what do you call it? Investment consulting. If they only knew that investment consulting was my cover for managing $1 billion real estate portfolio. That their precious Apex building was just one of many properties in my collection. I manage, I said just as my phone buzzed again. This time it was Marcus, head of building security. Ma'am, preparations complete for tomorrow's inspection. All security protocols updated as requested. David was still talking, his voice carrying across the restaurant. The view from up there is incredible. Perfect for impressing clients. Not that you'd know about that from your... He chuckled, cozy space. Views are nice, I agreed, thinking of my actual office. The penthouse suite above the 48th floor, accessible only by private elevator and unknown to most of the building's tenants. But location isn't everything. Location is absolutely everything, Aunt Catherine declared. Which is why we're all so worried about your career choices, dear. First that tiny office, then turning down the junior partnership at your uncle's firm. Ah yes, the infamous junior partnership, a glorified administrative position that would have put me directly under my uncle's thumb. Instead, I'd used my inheritance from Mom to start buying properties, building my empire in secret while they all assumed I was failing. How is Uncle George's firm doing? I asked innocently, knowing exactly how it was doing. Their main office building, another of my properties, had just raised their rent significantly. Challenges in the market, Aunt Catherine said stiffly. Nothing permanent. Though if you'd accepted the position. I'm happy with my choices, I interrupted gently. Sometimes small offices lead to big opportunities. David snorted into his whiskey. Opportunities? In that closet? The only opportunity you'll get there is organizing file cabinets. My phone lit up with another message from Sarah. Final paperwork ready for tomorrow. David's lease has several violations we can act on immediately. How would you like to proceed? I smiled, thinking of the morning to come. You know, David, you might be surprised by what you can accomplish in a small space. Speaking of space, how's the renovation planning going for your office expansion? Smoothly, he boasted. Meeting with the contractors tomorrow. Though I doubt the building owner will show up. Probably some investment group too busy counting their money to care about individual tenants. If he only knew that the investment group would indeed be there, sitting right across from him at this very moment. Well, I said, standing to leave, I should get back to my closet. Those file cabinets won't organize themselves. Don't work too hard, Jennifer called after me, her laughter following me out. Though I suppose in that tiny space, you can't help but stay organized. I stepped into my waiting car, not the flashy sports car David drove, but a discreet luxury vehicle that wouldn't draw attention. To the penthouse, I told my driver, thinking about tomorrow's meeting. Sometimes the smallest offices hide the biggest secrets. And tomorrow my dear family would learn exactly what I'd been building while they were busy laughing at my closet. The next morning transformed the apex building from a symbol of my family's condescension into a stage for their awakening. I watched from my actual office, the penthouse suite with its wraparound windows and private helipad, as David arrived for his contractor meeting. Sarah entered with our morning briefing. David's in the lobby trying to override the new security protocols. His access card has been downgraded as requested. I pulled up the security feeds on my wall of screens. David, in his typical Brooks Brothers suit, was gesturing angrily at Marcus, our head of security. "I've been coming here for months," his voice carried through the feed. "My firm is on the 48th floor." "Sorry, sir," Marcus replied with professional calm. "New security protocols require all tenants to check in for contractor meetings. We'll need the owner's representative present." "This is ridiculous. I'm expanding my lease. I practically own the floor." I pressed the intercom. "Marcus, please escort Mr. Richardson and his contractors to conference room A. I'll be down shortly." "Yes, Madam Owner," Marcus replied, loud enough for David to hear. Through the cameras, I watched my cousin's face shift from anger to confusion. "Madam Owner? She's here? Nobody ever sees the owner." Sarah suppressed a smile as she handed me today's property reports. "Your Aunt Catherine just arrived as well. Apparently, David called for reinforcement." "Perfect," I said, straightening my Armani suit, not the flashy labels my cousins preferred, but quality that spoke for itself. "Let's make this interesting." The conference room was a study in modern luxury, with views overlooking the city through bulletproof glass. David and his contractors sat on one side, Aunt Catherine hovering nearby, all of them facing the door expectantly. I entered through the private side entrance, enjoying their momentary confusion as they tried to reconcile my presence with their expectations. "Good morning," I said calmly, taking my seat at the head of the table. "I understand we're here to discuss lease violations and renovation plans." David's coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. What are you doing here?" "My job," I replied, opening the property files Sarah had prepared. "As the owner of this building, I take a personal interest in major renovations, especially when they involve lease violations." "Owner." Aunt Catherine's voice rose to a pitch I'd never heard before. But you work in a closet." "That's my secondary office," I corrected her. "Useful for maintaining privacy while overseeing operations. My primary office is the penthouse suite." "The mythical penthouse?" David's face had lost all color. "The one nobody's ever seen? Would you like a tour?" I offered. "After we discuss the multiple lease violations your firm has accumulated in just 3 months of occupancy." Sarah distributed documents detailing the infractions: unauthorized after-hours access, improper waste disposal, unpermitted structural modifications. David's face grew paler with each page. "This is impossible," Aunt Catherine declared, though her voice trembled slightly. "You're just a small-time investment consultant." I pressed a button and the room's screens came to life, displaying Summit Ventures' portfolio. Dozens of premium properties across the city, including their precious country club and my uncle's office building. Summit Ventures is actually one of the largest commercial real estate investment firms in the region, I explained. "The closet office is just where I meet with people who might be uncomfortable discovering they're talking to their landlord." David's coffee cup finally completed its journey, right onto his expensive suit. You own the building?" "The entire building, along with most of the commercial properties in the business district," I confirmed. "Including your father's law firm building. The one where I turned down that generous junior partnership offer." Aunt Catherine sank into a chair, her perfectly maintained facade cracking. "But all those times we mocked your office were quite enlightening," I finished for her. "Amazing what people reveal when they think they're talking to someone beneath them." My phone buzzed, another message from Sarah. "Your uncle just arrived in the lobby. Should security send him up?" "Speaking of revelations," I said, turning back to David, "let's discuss your renovation plans. Particularly the unauthorized structural changes you've already started." I, he, it was just some minor modifications, he stammered. Load-bearing wall modifications aren't minor, I corrected him, pulling up the building inspector's report. Neither is installing that private wet bar without proper permits. The previous owner never cared about such details, he protested. The previous owner, I smiled, sold to Summit Ventures 5 years ago. Right around the time I started working from that closet you found so amusing. Sarah entered with more reports. The contractors are ready to begin proper renovations. According to code this time. Excellent, I nodded. Though given the lease violations we should probably discuss new terms. Perhaps a rent adjustment to reflect the market rates I've been generously discounting. David's face went from pale to gray. New terms? But our expansion plans will need to be completely revised, I confirmed. Unless you prefer to relocate. I hear there's some lovely office space available in the suburbs. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning top-of-the-line systems I'd had installed last year while working from my tiny office. The following weeks transformed the Apex building from a symbol of status into a monument to humility. I watched from my penthouse as my family's understanding of success underwent a dramatic renovation of its own. The business news caught wind of the story. Apex building owner revealed. The closet office strategy. Summit Ventures CEO. How hidden success built an empire. From mockery to millions. The power of underestimation. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members who dismissed me for years. About that comment regarding your office. Remember my son's law school graduation party? Regarding the country club membership fees. I deleted them all, focusing instead on the comprehensive audit of David's lease violations. The results were enlightening: unauthorized renovations, improper use of facilities, and numerous building code violations hidden beneath expensive furniture and ego. Uncle George appeared at my penthouse door, looking considerably less imposing than usual. We need to talk about the rent increase at my firm's building. The increase to market rates? I asked, not looking up from my work. The ones I kept artificially low while you were offering me that junior partnership? We thought we were helping you, he protested weakly. No, I corrected him. You thought you were maintaining control. There's a difference. Sarah brought in the latest property acquisition reports. The Morrison building deal is complete. We now own the entire business district block. And, she smiled slightly, David's firm just requested a meeting about their lease terms. I checked my calendar. Schedule them in the closet office. Some lessons are better learned in small spaces. The family dynamics shifted dramatically over the next month. David's firm, facing actual market rate rents and proper building code enforcement, suddenly found their budget much tighter. Aunt Catherine's social media posts about premium office space went mysteriously quiet. Uncle George's firm had to explain to their partners why their sweetheart lease deal was ending. I maintained my routine, splitting time between my closet, office, and the penthouse, building my empire while they adjusted to their new reality. The small office became something of a legend in the building. Tenants whispered about the unassuming space where the owner sometimes worked, hidden in plain sight. 6 months later, I hosted a different kind of family dinner, this time in my penthouse office with its panoramic city views. The same relatives who'd mocked my tiny space now sat in awe, surrounded by evidence of what I'd built while they were busy showing off. The thing about real estate, I told them, gesturing at the cityscape, is that it's not about the size of your office. It's about understanding value, seeing potential where others see limitations. David, notably subdued in his less expensive suit, nodded. We never understood what you were building. Because you were too busy measuring success in square footage, I replied. Too focused on appearances to see the substance. The empire continued to grow. Summit Ventures expanded into new markets, developed innovative properties, transformed the commercial real estate landscape in ways my family had never imagined possible. Their precious office spaces became reminders of their misjudgment, each lease renewal a lesson in humility. Uncle George eventually retired, his firm adapting to new market realities. David downsized to a more modest office space, learning the difference between showing success and building it. Aunt Catherine stopped comparing office sizes at dinner parties. Me. I kept my closet, office, using it as both a reminder and a tool. New tenants still met me there first, never realizing they were negotiating with the building's owner until the right moment. 1 year later, during a family gathering in my penthouse, David finally asked the question that had probably haunted him for months. Why keep the small office? Why not work from here all the time? I showed him my first property deed purchased when I was fresh out of college. Because success isn't about having the biggest office or the best view. It's about building something meaningful, something that lasts. The family's perspective had shifted permanently. Status was no longer measured in square footage or floor numbers but in impact and innovation. My closet had become a lesson in looking beyond appearances, in understanding that real power often resides in unexpected places. I still use both offices, the penthouse for running operations, the small space for meetings where I need to observe people's true characters. The contrast between them serves as a constant reminder that perception and reality often occupy different floors of the same building. Sometimes late at night I'll sit in my closet, office, remembering how it felt to be underestimated and dismissed. It's a reminder that success isn't about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. And occasionally when I overhear new tenants mocking the tiny office on the 3rd floor, I'll let them continue their lease negotiations there, watching their faces when they finally realize who they've been talking to. Because in the end, true success isn't measured by the size of your office or the height of your floor. It's measured by what you build while others are busy measuring spaces, by the legacy you create while they're focused on appearances, and by the empire you establish while they're still defining success by square footage. And sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in watching coffee cups freeze midair. It's in building something so substantial that it transforms not just a skyline, but the very people who once measured your worth by the size of your office.